Okay, right. The reason I'm going to do this little video is I'm going to do a little YouTube, I think, on Super 7. It's a lovely, lovely little lathe. However, there's a few things, well, there's a couple of things that niggle me. I'll show you one of them, but it don't matter, but there's a right little bit of play in there. And at first I thought it was shaft, just moving on thing, but it's not. It's not the shaft moving on the wheel. It's in there, it probably hasn't got a bush, it's probably straight in the casting. Ideally that could do a little bush in there. The one that really niggles me is this. This is great because you've got the wheel, you've got the vernier dial on it, and you can zero it, and I've scratched that to mark it better because it wasn't too clever, but you know, you can do all that. There's a right little bit, well, a right little bit, let's show you how much play there is. So let's get that to 0. 9 thou, 8.5 thou play in that. So a little bit of play in that, which is the brass nut inside here. Again, don't kill me, but I mean, it's on a crossfeed, and it's not often I want to do. Well, it is. I mean, you just always come back and then take it back in again. So, but the reason for this is this. Look, watch. There's play in this, and under here there's a pin, which I never knew what it was, but a lad at Model Engineering site told me what it was. And the pin is to knock off the power crossfeed. So if you've got power crossfeed, that's out and it's locked in, and you take the table too far over, it presses that, does that peg, pushes it off. But what I've done is I've screwed it in to make it tighter onto this pin in here, which is crap. You know, really, it wants a bush in here. It's straight into aluminium. It's a steel shaft in aluminium. Look at that. You know, that is rubbish, innit? So I'm gonna take this off. I could buy a new one, but what's the point? I might as well take that off, bore it out, and make a brass bush to go in here. I mean, a phosphor bronze one would be ideal, but I ain't got any. I have got a little bit of brass somewhere. One of drawers. Somewhere. I've got some brass. So I could make a little brass bush. Won't cost a penny to make. And put that in there and get rid of all that play, as long as I do it right. So that's a little project I want to do. Everything else is okay. There's a right little bit of play on that as well. But, you know, show me one that hasn't got any play on it, I suppose. It's been used, and that wants repainting. This is the one I had this ground down, the top there, the compound, so that I could fit the larger one of those as opposed to the 000 one, which is the smaller one. I went for this bigger one so that I could do large tooling, so that I could get things like this in. Look. And that's a 16mm boring bar that I've cut down. I think these are 13mm, but there's still room, look, for something bigger. So, and when I got the lathe, I got a ton of HSS stuff with it. Well, not a ton, but quite a few bits. And of course, they won't fit into anything either, but they fit into that, so that's great. And it works out fantastic as that. It was easy to do. I used the original stud. A lot of people take this stud out, put a fresh one in, but I cheated. That nut there, if you look, there's no stud there, but there is. That's a sleeve nut, because the diameter of the bore of this is quite big and the stud isn't. It's something like equal to a 10mm, and this is something like 12mm. So this here, what I did was I made a sleeve nut, and that screws down onto it, and it works absolutely super. I made that out of a bit of stainless, and that fits on there. That's got an aluminium spacer on it, but you see, that's the original Myford stud. and all I did with that. Not seen anybody else do that. Normally they just make the original stud and make it fit the big stud. I've still got that somewhere, come with in box. But yeah, no, I'm really happy with that, and I've never had any bother with that. No chatter, no jumping about, no nothing. It's been really, really good. I've had all this in bits because that were all tight and stuck up, but that's working superb as well. I completely gutted it and redid it. Some people put a vernier on there. Would be handy actually, because sometimes when I'm sending that through, all you've got is a scale on there. I'm not sure whether each scale's 1/8 of an inch. It'd be better with a little vernier on there. Don't know how you do it. I'll have to have a look on YouTube, see if anybody's done it. Whether they make this smaller, I don't know, but that is a nut that screws in. Or whether they have the scale just etched onto there, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. But the lathe itself, I'm absolutely delighted with. I mean, the things I can do with this, that I got a lot of jib from people saying, why would you want to do that? But I use these mandrels that I've made. I use these for making rings. You see a pot mark on the chuck there and a pot mark on there. I always do that with I've got a bit of bar that's going to be repetitive in here. I just line them 2 dots up, and then when I spin it up, that's okay. Turned it, this cost chucking perfect. So with that, I mean, that's running at a 10.5 hertz. My jog, if I bang that in, that goes down to 1.5 hertz, and that's the speed of the chuck. It'll run either way. So that's at 1.5 hertz. Would you ever want to go slower than that? I doubt it, but I do when I put my CA super glue onto my rings. What I'm doing in here, rings idea. So rings. One I've just been finishing is that one. That's if you can see it. That's rosewood, Indian rosewood. Of course, they go on there onto mandrel, tighten the pinch screw up, expand it, and then work on it. But sometimes you want to go really, really slow. Well, it's not that hard to do, because on the Myford you've got the back gear. On Super 7 it's not that hard to do, because all you do is flick that lever over so that free wheels, and then mesh that in, and then you've got that's running at 1.5 hertz. And that's how fast it's going. And you know, I've used it loads of times like that when I've been doing stuff. And people say there's no torque. I'll tell you what, I'll defy you to try and stop that. You cannot stop that. Break your flipping wrist. Very, very powerful. But I have got behind here a rather large motor. It's a 1.5 horsepower Clark's 3-phase motor. And I'm glad I actually got the 1.5 now. I've got this board up, it's just a swath guard to stop getting all crap in all my electrics here. There's a few diggers about that as well. But people want to dig, don't they? That's what they do. So yeah, so I knocked that off jog and I can speed that up, but I mean, listen to what a brass gear, back gear sounds like. That's what they sound like. That's how they are. Nothing wrong with it. Yeah, nothing wrong with it. It's just how they are. This belt on this pulley, I've never changed it from that since I put this inverter on, and it will go down or up in speed. I mean, obviously if I went to this one it'd be slower, and high speed would be up there, but it'll run up to, well, good speed. I don't know what it is. Let's have a look. Well, we're here. Knock that out. turn this till I can see that there. Drop that back in. I've got it set 60 maximum. I'd say that was quick enough, wouldn't it, really? But what jobs would I want where I'd want to go faster than that? I mean, most of the time I'm running around 500 RPM, 700. But yeah, good mod that, 3-phase inverter, sweet as a nut. But that's what I want to get on with. Oh, so what I've forgotten whether I've done. I did this a while back, so I'm not sure. I'm sure I've made it. So when you press stop, it stops under the time up, time down on the inverter setting. And I'm sure if I hit crash stop, it stops straight away. Ah, it does. I've forgotten about that. So if you're belting along a bit, and you press normal stop, it just runs down. I can set that to anything. You set it at 20 seconds if you want. But on e-stop, stops straight away, well, as quick as it can. It doesn't lock up. Strangely, this one does. This stops straight away when I hit stop. Having said that, it is only stop. It hasn't got e-stop, but I didn't put one on because it came like this part from I've put it in this better enclosure, but when you press stop, it just stops instantly. Well, that's running. Stopped. Stops dead. Can't really see it, can you? Not to see. Maybe that. Stop. Pretty quick. It's as quick as any normal stop would be. Right, so I've stripped the cross slide down. That's for powered crossfeed, I think. So I've stripped it down, and this is the culprit. That hole in there is like 1.25 millimeters bigger than this here. So consequently, it just rattles about. Loads of play in it. So, piece of phosphor bronze. I'm hoping that's phosphor bronze. I've been assured it is slightly darker than shiny brass. So I'm going to turn that, bore that to 19 mil, well, just under, and ream it. So we've got a good fit there. Make that 19 mil as a bush to go into it, into there, and then bore the centre of that 14.26 mil, which is this shaft here, and reassemble. I've seen a lot of people putting needle roller bearings on the front and rear of that. I can't see any sort of pickup or wear on that. I mean, that's one face that rubs on there. That's your wheel that's free to turn. It's just got a spring washer on it. And then you've got your thrust nut, I'll call it, your locking nut. That winds up onto there, which is this thread here. and then it's got a little copper pad in there and a grub screw to nip it, so you eliminate any wear. And in fairness, I didn't have any movement that way, so I can see why you put needle roller bearings in, but I'm not sure whether it's required. So I'm going to make a bush. One of the questions I ask myself is, I suppose that's got to fit flush on there like that, otherwise it'd look a pillock if it were out here. So if I put a shoulder on that bush, pressed it in with a shoulder on it, that's not going to go fully up. So my only other way would be to leave that the full size of that and the bush, and to make a shoulder, and then bar or counter bar this for a little pocket to take it, so the bush should be pressed in and snug up to that. Am I going over the top? Do I just need a bush to press in there? I probably think so. I can't see why I'd want to put a shoulder on there and just be that rubbing against it. No, I'm not going to overcomplicate it. I'm just going to bar this and ream it to 19mm. I'm going to make my bush first, because if I make a bollocks of that, excuse my language, make a mess of that, then I can bar this to suit it. If I bar that first, I've had it if I get that wrong. So that's my job. I'll come back when I've made the bush. Got to get that down to 19. 21.3, still quite a way to go, but we're getting there. That's a little bush. So that's the phosphor bronze bush made. So now I've got, that's 19.06mm. I've got to drill and ream that to 19. I've got a reamer. I've just left that slightly oversized. I'm not going to part it off yet until I make sure that that fits on there. So we've stripped all this back off again. So next job, milling machine. Get that board and let's see where we go. Right, I'm just putting it back together. the phosphor bronze bush is in there. What I'll do is I'll screw it in, and I'll take this off, and we can see the bush from that side then. In fact, here I've taken hand wheel off, but you still can't see the bush. The bush is in there, but I will pause it, screw this screw back in, and then we can compare the amount of play there was when I first started it to what there is now. Right, it's all back together. Strangely, well, not strangely, but the nut on these is there. That's the nut, and I think that thing that's going around there, that's your power feed. So, which is driven from this carriage, but it's more or less eliminated any play at all. I mean, I'm just turning the handle like that. You can see. You can hardly tell, can you? But that is moving. It's more or less eliminated all the play, and it's taken that side movement out that I had. It had a right rattle side to side. That's completely gone now, so well chuffed. A little bit stiff in a bit, but just there. But it's okay. I'm sure it'll free up with use, but it seems fine. Really chuffed with it. Glad I did it. How much did it cost? Nothing. Well, my time, but my time ain't nothing, is it? So, yeah, good little mod to do. I put a shoulder on the back, so the bit behind that bush, behind the nut that adjusts this on, I left a shoulder, so the nut is pressed against the phosphor bronze. So I don't know, but does that eliminate the need for these little needle roller bearings that people talk about putting in? I mean, that's sweet enough. It seems all right. There's no play anywhere. I'm really happy with that. So I'll just carry on putting it all back together. Just got to put top slide back on again. If anybody's interested in doing it, it's a doddle. You could have done it in brass, I suppose. I mean, I used a piece of phosphor bronze that I got off my mate, which, no, that's brass. That, he just gave me it. I mean, as I say, brass would do it just as easy. I mean, it's a bit daft that the bushing is straight in on a hard steel shaft onto this aluminium. White metal. Big ends on cars are white metal, aren't they? The last, but that hadn't. There's a little bit of play in that as well. I'd like to maybe attack that. But I believe there is a bush behind there, according to the Myford drawing that I've got. Yeah, we'll keep going at it. Thanks for watching.